All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us for today's presentation, Foundational Tools on Entrepreneurship. It'll be taught by Laura, and we'll introduce her in a minute. Before we get going too far, just kind of want to go over a little bit about the SBDC first. So you can go to the next slide. So small business development centers are located throughout the United States. So we are a nonprofit organization funded through the Small Business Administration, as well as the state of California. We are our center here. We are supported by Cal Poly Humboldt, as well as the Siskiyou Economic Development Council. So like I said, funded by the SBA, state of California. So our purpose is to provide confidential, no-cost advising, as well as low to no-cost training services, such as the one we're presenting today. So we love supporting businesses, helping them start, grow, thrive, just kind of whatever that process is that you're in. And we are, so we do have to serve people who are located in our area. So we'll get you more information on how to locate your own SBDC office. But yeah, like I said, SBDC offices that serve every county in the US. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. So I'll just have to read this disclaimer and then we can get going. So the information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to registrants and any attendees are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant or attendee should act or fail to act on the basis of any material contained in this workshop or webinar without obtaining proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the Cal Poly Humboldt Sponsored Programs Foundation, and the Siskiyou Economic Development Council specifically disclaims any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence, directly or indirectly, of the use and application of any of the information presented in this webinar. All right, well, I will hand it over to Laura, and we will get started on entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Emily. Well, welcome everyone. Just excited that y'all are here, and I'm just hope that you enjoy this this presentation on entrepreneurship. So yes, my name is Laura. So a little bit about me. I am a Texan. In case you're wondering where my accent comes from, it's a combination of Mexican heritage. I did grow up in an entrepreneurship home. So both my parents had occupations where self-motivation and risk-taking was necessary. And as a matter of fact, my older sister got her business degree. So as you can imagine, I did follow into her footsteps. I got my undergraduate from the University of Houston downtown, and I did my graduate studies at Texas Women's University. All right, so well, thank you for joining again. I know most of you are entrepreneurs. Today we'll touch the baseline on entrepreneurship. I'd like you to know that I normally do teach this course in a 15-week classroom setting, but what you'll be getting today is a version it's a short version, but with the same passion, and also with a light that it should spark up your entrepreneurship spirit. All right, so let's start. So by the end of this course, what I would want you to have is to recognize how entrepreneurs think. My goal is to get you activated on the idea of entrepreneurship, to speak entrepreneurship, and to begin acting entrepreneurially. So do me a favor, if you can, put on your entrepreneur's cap, because you'll be getting a lot of information for today, and I really want you to store that information to use whether today or in the future. All right, so if you can and you are available, I'd like for you to introduce yourself or your business. You have a business idea, So I'll do a pause just really quick and see if you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah, and feel free to put that information in the chat as well.
Yes, feel free to do that in the chat also. All right. And so I do want to say, so if you say with me entrepreneurial, because we'll be saying that word a lot today, and I want you to just get used to it, because you will hear it a lot today. So if you say that word with me, it'll be in your vocabulary in the next for the next hour or so. All right, so nature of entrepreneurship. So I want to start by sharing actually a story that's fresh in my mind from this weekend. I joined a friend at her home for a yard sale, and there was this little boy, perhaps 9 or 10 years old, who was riding his bike around the neighborhood, and he saw the yard sale sign, so he decided to check it out. He came, he looked, and then he left. Next thing we know, he's back again, but this time he is he comes with 2 items in his hand, and he says to my friend, would you be willing to negotiate? Would you be willing to do an exchange? To that, my friend responded with, sure, what do you have your eye on? He said, on those pairs of sneakers. Now these sneakers are some very new Air Jordans. They hadn't been used a lot, and they're valued at over $100. My friend said, sorry, I can't do the shoes, but if you choose anything else, we can make a deal. He then proceeded to leave, only to come back about 10 minutes later with another item on his hand. He said, I don't have money, but this item is worth a lot. And it was a silver turtle trinket, metal trinket that he had. He was very good. He sold it very well. He said you could use this for jewelry, you could use this as a soap, and so forth. But still, the value compared to the sneakers didn't add up. Also, the sneakers were a size 9, so it just wasn't a fit for the little boy. But otherwise, my friend just decided to, he ended up leaving with a couple of items, and then he was home happy. I shared this story because it's interesting, and this just happened this weekend. As a little boy, 9 years old, and he's already thinking entrepreneur. He's already thinking what he's able to offer, he was able to identify opportunities. And so for some of you, that's where you are right now. That's probably why you joined this webinar, because there's opportunities or there's things that you've identified that you would like to probably take a risk on. So that's a good story. Let's go ahead and proceed. So what is entrepreneurship? So Stanford University defines entrepreneurship as an individual or as a small group of partners who strike out an original path to create a new business. Who is an entrepreneur? So this person is an aspiring entrepreneur who seeks a particular business venture, and it's the entrepreneur who assumes the greatest amount of risk associated with the project. Entrepreneurs' pursuit often involves innovation. So you'll notice that a lot of the times, a lot of the entrepreneurs, and we'll touch base on the next slide, they have that innovation, that risk kind of thing on them. You might ask, what makes an entrepreneur, right? Who makes entrepreneurs such as Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, and Mark Cuban? Well, there's actually many factors that contribute to a person becoming an entrepreneur. And from this panel, you could say maybe drive, innovation, there's leadership, there's being the first, there's passion, there's curiosity, persistence, and most importantly, there's acting on the idea, right? That's what an entrepreneur does. That's what most of the panelists here did, right? So entrepreneur thinking. Acting is acting on and pursuing the identified opportunity, which involves entrepreneurial thinking. Entrepreneurs must often make decisions in highly uncertain environments where the stakes are high and time pressures are immense. And there is a considerable emotional investment. Simply put, entrepreneurs think differently than non-entrepreneurs. There's this sense of determination, right? In the case of the little boy that I shared the story about at the beginning of this presentation, there was that sense of determination trying to get a negotiation going, right? All right, so let's look at some leadership characteristics of entrepreneurs. So the first, they have a high emotional intelligence. So these are folks that are able to understand themselves and also understand the people around them. They must have a visionary, they must be a visionary leader. So this is a person who's dreaming great dreams. They must be flexible and create market options. These are also people that are self-motivated. You have entrepreneurs who have a sense of passion and purpose. They have openness. Their openness leads to a strong coalition of supporters, and this also includes partnerships, as we'll talk about a little bit later. And an entrepreneur must be persistent, right, to make a new venture successful. So these are some characteristics. All right, so let's talk about the terminology. So have you ever had those times when you knew what to do, but didn't necessarily have the words or language to go with it? A lot of times you have small businesses owners who open a business, but not necessarily have the language to connect with their actions, right? So let's look at some opportunities. So entrepreneurial opportunities are those situations in which new goods, services, raw materials, and organizing methods can be introduced and sold at greater than their cost of productions. In the previous slides, we did talk about how entrepreneur thinking leads to opportunity. Opportunities are those situations, as we mentioned, those opportunities that come. Remember, again, the story of the little boy that I shared at the beginning of him wanting to make that exchange, right? There was an opportunity for him, and he had some items, right, to be able to exchange. So they are favorable conditions that create the need for a good or service or business to be had. All right, so an entrepreneur opportunity could stem from a new market, a new product for an existing market, or a new product for a new market. Entrepreneurial actions begin at the nexus of a lucrative opportunity and an enterprising individual. All right, so entrepreneurs act on what they believe is an opportunity. Because opportunities exist in high uncertainty, entrepreneurs must use their judgment about whether or not to act. To be an entrepreneur is to act on the possibility that one has identified an opportunity worth pursuing. So you want to always act on that idea. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides. All right, so entrepreneurship mindset. So that involves the ability to rapidly sense, act, and mobilize even under uncertain conditions. It involves developing the mindset. Individuals must attempt to make sense of opportunities in the context of changing needs, constantly questioning the dominant logic in the context of changing environment. And to be effective entrepreneurs, they must continuously rethink current strategic actions, organization structures, communication systems, corporate culture, investment strategies, and in short, every aspect of a firm's operation. All right, so let's look at entrepreneurial intentions. The entrepreneur's intentions are the motivational factors that influence the individuals to pursue entrepreneurial outcomes. Entrepreneurs intend to pursue certain opportunities, enter new markets, and offer new products, and that's a rarely unintentional behavior. Intentions are the indicator of how hard people are willing to try and how much of an effort they're planning to exert to perform that behavior, right? All right, so entrepreneurial self-efficacy. I did tell you at the beginning that we were going to be saying entrepreneur a lot. So I hope you've already been counting all those times, right? So self-efficacy affects a person's choice of action and the amount of effort exerted. These are people who believe that they have the capacity to perform well, and they intend to perform well. High self-efficacy leads to increased initiative and persistence with improved performance, while low self-efficacy reduces effort and thus performance. All right, I'm gonna pause there because I know I've been talking a lot. Does anyone have any questions regarding the terminology and just what entrepreneurial opportunities are, or where you can find them? All right. There's someone in the chat.
Yep, looks like we're good so far. There's someone saying thank you.
Thank you, Emily. All right. All right, great. So we'll proceed. All right, so from the idea to the opportunity. So we want to talk about creating your business and taking the risk, right? All right, so first you have the concept stage. So in this stage, the refined idea is to test the be tested to determine customer acceptance, right? Then you have product development stage. This is a one tool which is frequently used in the stage for a consumer panel in which a group of potential consumers is giving a product samples. Finally, you have the test marketing stage. Then that's where it provides actual sales results, which indicate the acceptance level of consumers. So once it's hit actually the test marketing stage, that product or service is ready to go. So it kind of just gives you already the feedback because you have the results of the service or products. It gives you the feedback you need to give it a go. But usually entrepreneurs take the concept, then they make it into that product development stage, and then they put it to test, right? Have you ever, I know most of you have gone to probably the grocery store, and they usually have those samples of the lemonade or something. So that's reasonably what these stages are, right? They give you just that sample to see how they're testing the market and see how consumers are reacting and responding to them. All right, so hopefully some of you are familiar with Sarah Blakely. If not, you probably purchased, your sister, your brother, well, not your brother, but your sister, your mom probably have purchased some of her Spanx stuff. So Sarah Blakely, her net worth is 1.3 billion. She started her business from Texas, I believe. So it was while she was working as a salesperson, actually, selling faxes machines, that she realized two things. One, that she was a really good salesperson. And the second, that the uniform she had to wear, that she had the idea to cut off the pantyhose to wear the uniform or the slacks more comfortably, right? So she had an idea, right? She had no knowledge of the business or design of women's clothing, right? She did take a risk, so that was her first big risk, was to reach out to Neiman Marcus Group and decide to have a buyer look at her items, and they did. And so that was her first biggest risk. There's any CrossFitters in the room? You probably have heard of Noble. That's another brand. So Noble actually was started by Michael Schaefer and Marcus Wilson. They both met while in Reebok. They were both working Reebok together. Marcus has more of a business expertise, while Michael has more of the design, right? The brand represents no BS. So in essence, no bull. They believe in working hard, and they began actually getting traction when they started sponsoring Olympic athletes. But they're very known for their links to CrossFit, to the PGA Tour, and then recently they acquired the NFL rights to sponsor it. They're worth 500 million, starting from nothing. I didn't mention that, but yeah, they had maybe like an initial investment of maybe 30K, and now about 10 years later, it's at 500 million. However, the important thing that I didn't mention also about Spanx and this brand, they're both in the transitional stages. Spanx was just bought out, and so even though it's making 1 billion already in revenue, it's expected to grow over to 100. And for Noble, the same thing. So right now it's still net worth 500, but it was just bought out by Mike Repo, who is the co-founder of Body Armor and Vitamin Water, and it's expected to hit $1 billion from 500 million. So they started small, they've grown, and they're continuing to grow. These are both examples of ideas or ideas that became an opportunity, and now they're very successful. All right, so for you, determining the need. To accurately determine the need for a new idea, it's helpful to define the potential needs of the market in terms of timing, market structure, and type of need. So you want to look at the need initially. So the continuing need, is there like an emerging need for that product or service? Will they be a future need, right? These are things that you might want to question yourself. There's the timing is very important. I have a background in fashion and apparel, and I always say like there's reasons why people start developing, fashion wear or start designing fashion wear like a year before it's actually launched. That's because it's timing, right? There's the spring season, there's the summer season, and then there's the fall season. So timing is everything. You, as a entrepreneur, you want to think about the duration of that need, of that product, of that service, the frequency and the demand. And you want to look at the market size and potential. Is there a potential of growth in that market? What are the market trends, and what is the current market development? How is it looking? How's the economy, and so forth? All right. And then we proceed with how can you begin acting entrepreneurially, right? It's go time. It's time for you to start thinking entrepreneurially. So entrepreneurs can generate economic wealth for themselves, but their impact on development can be far greater. They can generate economic, environmental, and social gains for others, including job opportunities or revenues for the government. Environmental gains can be reduced air pollution, increased drinking water quality, and so forth. And then there could be social gains for the entrepreneur. It can include improved child survival rates, longer life expectancy, superior education, and so forth, right? There's many brands that do that. All right, so how do you begin acting entrepreneurially? So first of all, you don't want to go start a business right away, right? So I just want to take that pressure off, right? You don't have to do that. But what you can do, what this means is that you can be a creative in terms of problem solving. You could keep an eye out on circumstances that you can use to your advantage. You could be innovative and be creative and just resourceful and adaptable, right? You could keep an eye out on the market and just kind of see where things are trending, what maybe products can be made out of the resources that you probably already have. In terms of an activation, I like to, for many of you that's probably joining, you're probably in your first step of unlocking your entrepreneurial mindset. There's others who already have an idea in mind and just need a push, but everyone is in the right place, right? You want to take advantage of free resources like this one and continuing to take steps forward. which will always bear good fruit. Your hard work will not return void. So I like to activate you by asking you 3 things. First, to begin by brainstorming ideas or things you're passionate about. And then by researching what matters, what the market is currently offering for your product and service, and what matters to you. Also begin taking steps into making your dream a reality. All right, I want to take a pause there. Does anyone have any questions?
A couple people had questions about the recording of this webinar, had some issues logging in for some people. But yes, we will send everyone a recording of this webinar as well as a copy of the presentation. So you will get that within the next couple of business days. We'll try to get it out as soon as we can.
Thank you, Emily. All right, great. All right, so I'm going to wrap up and we're just going to see what we covered. Again, we talked at the beginning about the nature of entrepreneurship. We talked a little bit about the terminology, right? Entrepreneurship opportunities. If you recall the story that I gave about the little boy at the beginning of this presentation, there's that opportunity that he took in having something that he had, a resource that he had, and then wanting to exchange it, in a sense, negotiating, right? Which is a business. Entrepreneurial action and thinking, mindset, the intention and the self-efficacy, which are all parts of an entrepreneurial terminology. Then from the idea to the opportunity, plus the activation, right? There's that determining the need. Again, we talked about Spanx, and then we also gave the example of Noble, which are 2 great brands. And so determining the need, finding that opportunity, and then just giving it a go time, right? All right. So if you're ready to move on, so if any of you here have any business advice or would like any business advice, we're currently taking in new clients. All advising is free through the SBDC, as Emily mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. My areas of expertise are administration, marketing, and creative strategy, branding, startup, sales growth, and fashion and retail. So if you're ready to move on and need business advising, feel free to set up an appointment. So you would have to first reach out to Emily, and she'll do a preliminary screening at no cost. And then we get set up a meeting. If you enjoyed this presentation, I wish you all the best. Now we'll hand it over to Emily.
Okay, looks like we do have a couple questions. So I might want to hit those first, and then I will kind of go over the wrap up. So the question is, what are some tips on moving past the concept stage?
Right. So that's a good question. So you want to begin just that. A lot of entrepreneurs, you have that brainstorming, right? They begin brainstorming just a couple of things, a couple of ideas, maybe researching the market, seeing if that service of that product is currently being made, if it's already being developed. Maybe, I don't know if this is an innovative product or service or something new, then you would probably have to test it, as we talked about in the market. Remember we talked about the little lemonade stands or whatever in the grocery store. So just determining what kind of brand, what kind of product, what kind of service you're offering, and then going from there. But I would say that, yes, the first steps is just brainstorming ideas, researching the market, researching what's already available, and then going from there.
Awesome. And then we also got a question about kind of next steps for getting a mentor, things like that. So as Laura said, she is an SBDC advisor with us, so she can, if you're located in our service area in Northern California, which includes Shasta, Siskiyou, and Trinity counties, you can request to meet with Laura for some business assistance. So that's, you don't have to be in business to start meeting with us, but we do want you to have an idea of what you're wanting to do for the business. If you're pretty, early stages before that, and not sure what you want to do, and it might be several years out. There are, other organizations as well, like the SCORE office, and I'll make sure to get you guys that information as well. But yeah, those are kind of the 2 steps. And then we also have, resources, like our YouTube channel posted on the screen right now, for places that you can, view things to get started. But yeah, for that one-on-one assistance, you would just reach out to your SBDC office, whether that's us or another office for you. And then does anyone else have any questions? You can go ahead and put that in the chat. And then it looks like we have a question of someone who's in our Northern California network, who has a question about meeting with Laura because of your specialty in fashion. I just have to put that request in with your local SBDC office. So yeah, I will make a note of that and then see if we can get that connected for you. Okay, yeah, and then so other resources that you can view that we have a couple of social media channels. Like I said, you can view previous recordings on our YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat as well some information if you're out of our area, how to reach your local SBDC. So go ahead and put that there. And then we did kind of wrap up a little bit earlier today than expected, but like we said, we'll get you a copy of the recording for those of you who were able to join us early on. If you can let us know kind of how we did today, or if there's any other topics that you want us to do, I just put a link in the chat for a survey. So if you could, click on that now, you can fill it out here in a minute after we log off. That would be super helpful for us. And then, yeah, since we still have a few minutes, Laura, was there any, any other helpful tips or maybe a story about entrepreneurship that you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I did want to share. So next month, I'm also doing another webinar on small business strategies, which I'm sure it'll be in the calendar if you're interested in that. So just as I said at the beginning, this is it's a 15-week course that I usually teach at the university level. To try to cram it all in 1 hour, I try to just get the terminology in there, so just kind of like the basics, so you had that to use, so were kind of aware. I gave the story of mostly some business owners are already in business but don't really have that language, so it's just useful to have some kind of basics, but you'll have this PowerPoint with you, so you're able to go back and just kind of look into those things. But yeah, if you're, I guess I would suggest, I know for myself, I do have an e-commerce brand, and for me, it started also with an idea. For me, it was, I'm a soccer enthusiast. So for me, it was more of like wanting to provide fashionable wear for women, something that was different than your typical jersey, which is usually, the cut is usually for men. And so my idea was to create something that was new. And so it was my designs. And so it just started from that. And I started making just different designs that would link to World Cups. So, the Women's World Cups are every 4 years. So it was designed specifically, we talked about timing, right? A couple of slides ago. So it was the timing of like, we got a design for when the World Cup is and so forth. So yeah, so I would say, if you have that idea, just jot it down, write down maybe if you have the name of your company, or just something, you could always just start small and write it down and put it together. I'd say it took me from the time of conception, so from the time of when I thought of the idea to where I actually became an entity, which was an LLC that I got to register. It probably took me maybe 3 months to register to become an LLC, to get the sales tax ID so I could start selling and all that. So it would take you, maybe about 3 months, depending on the time that you have for the idea and for the business. But yes, know that I'm rooting for you, because I'm an entrepreneur myself. So I'm rooting for you, and I'm just excited for you to move on with your idea, with your business, or with whatever, whatever concept you have in mind. So thank you, Emily, for hosting. You have your mute on. Thank you, Emily, for hosting. And thank you, everyone, for joining this meeting, and just wish you well. And yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, we'll get you the recording to this soon.